Ramos from County Prep High School in Jersey City, New Jersey. Today I'm going to present to you my fashion construction project. As you can see, it's a two-piece ensemble. It's a black satin halter neck dress with an organza overcoat. Both fabrics are 100% polyester, as the price is much more affordable for me being a teenager. I purchased most of my fabric and items at local stores in Jersey City, meaning that I was able to keep the price low. Also, some of the fabrics that I used were donated to me, lowering the prices even further. Even though satin was the most expensive fabric I used, I spent most of my money on organza because I had to use much more of it. Initially, I designed this garment to be my school's annual fashion show. I soon realized it would be the perfect garment to compete in the FCCLA fashion construction event due to the complexity of the fabrics, the design, and the techniques I used on the garment. I was a bit nervous due to participating in a star event for the first time, but I came up with a clear goal in my planning process and I got to work. With this garment, already knowing I'll be putting new skills into practice, I decided that I would be making my own pattern for it, as I know I wouldn't find a commercial pattern that had a similar enough design to my sketch. And due to my small size, I knew that the alterations would be difficult. While not something I had much experience with, I knew I wanted to push myself this year and try new techniques. When I first designed the garment, I hadn't thought about whether it was possible to create. I was only looking for something pretty to draw. It was my teacher who encouraged me to actually create the dress, so with her help and the help of the seamstresses I was interning under, I redesigned the garment so that it would retain the silhouette I was looking for, but it had the support it needed to hold up. I switched out the original sweetheart neckline for the halter neck, and I added in princess seams along the front. As you can see on the doc in my digital file, most of my time was spent working on patterns and mock-ups. It was a back and forth process. Make the mock-up, ask opinions on the look, alter it to fit, and then redo the paper pattern, and then repeat the whole process all over again. But after all of that, the making of the final garment was pretty straightforward. Though, I have to admit, I made around 4 mock-ups before I went on to my final garment, and I lost count of how many times I had to redo my paper pattern in order to perfect it. I used pinking shears on my dress seams instead of a serger machine because I learned from my time in my internship that when you iron a garment, the serged edges could leave an imprint on the satin and other fabrics. The pinking shears would keep the seams flat and thin. I put lace tape on the raw hem of the dress and I hand stitched it down instead of using a machine because I didn't want the flow of my dress seams to be interrupted by a visible hem stitch. After that, I hand sewed on 2 small shank buttons and elastic loops onto the collar. I decided to use elastic loops instead of snaps or buttonholes because the elastic loops would allow for more movement around the neck and wouldn't feel so tight and uncomfortable. Then, I moved on to the overcoat. The summer prior, I had decided to pursue an internship with a seamstress. During this time of learning how to use machines, alter clothes, and work with customers, I also learned how to sew an invisible zipper to the point of being able to sew it perfectly first time on my final garment. I carefully sewed on the invisible zipper, and then I hand stitched the lining down, tucking away the raw edges onto the zipper. Technically, the way I first designed the overcoat wasn't possible to make, as in the original drawing, it had no seams, and I hadn't thought too deeply about how to keep its shape. The top of the overcoat hung around the shoulders, yet it still had a stiff shape, so I knew I had to switch it out so that it would drape over the shoulders instead. But now, my teacher and I were struggling on how to create a pattern for it. It felt like an amazing breakthrough when I realized that in order to make the overcoat, we should just split it into 3 pieces. The 2 sleeves that would make up the top, and a circle skirt. For the top of the overcoat, I did French seams because the raw edges would be visible through the sheer fabric. The organza skirts didn't give me the flounces or volume I was looking for on their own, so I knew I needed to add horsehair onto the hem to give it more of a lift. As you can see on my planning process sheet, I was a bit nervous about working with organza. It is very thin and sheer. I couldn't make any mistakes while sewing. Needless to say, sewing tiny French seams and horsehair with the slippery fabric has removed any fear of working with organza. I learned many valuable skills over the course of the making of this garment that I will put to use in the future. I learned that your primary plans and ideas can change with time, and that any bumps in the process can lead to better results than if you just stayed with the original idea. Overall, I'm very pleased with the way my project and garment came out, and I'm glad I pushed myself this year so that next year I'll do better. Now, any questions? Oh, You're asking what I found most challenging? Well, if I had presented my project in Cherry Hill on March 22nd, I would have said something about my dress. But as I had to make this a virtual project, I would say that the most challenging has probably been just trying to keep all my documents and pictures together and to put them on the file. Since it wasn't physical, I didn't have any copies, it was very easy to lose track of where I kept everything and to keep everything organized.